Okay, so Lee, let's start with a question today. Who is the greatest singer-songwriter of all time, and why is it John Mayer?
Would you put John Mayer over Paul Simon?
Well, I draw a distinction between like a singer-songwriter and just a songwriter. So I think I like Paul Simon. I like Paul Simon's songwriting more, but in terms of just a pure performer, like who do I think can just walk out onto a stage with a guitar and nothing else and entertain me and an audience for like 90 minutes plus? I think I'm going with John Mayer.
I think you're right, dude. And I think a lot of that has to do with his chops.
Like guitar chops?
Like his guitar chops are unreal. You know what I mean?
He occupies this weird space because I think you could compare him to lots of modern songwriters and lots of old songwriters. Like one person we'll talk about today for sure is Ed Sheeran, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like I kind of think of them as swimming in the same water, but they're totally different. They're completely different artists.
Yeah.
And John Mayer's like attachment to the blues, like what you're talking about, his guitar chops is really a hard line in the sand that differentiates him from like a modern I make pop music person. Like
Totally.
John Mayer is never going to write The Shape of You and have it, you know, it's never going to sound like an Ed Sheeran song. He's too attached to like a more like pure musical like blues band background.
Yeah, well, you know, I think his early stuff really, I mean, I wouldn't say his early work kind of as a collection, but just one or two songs early on, like Your Body is a Wonderland, you know, has that like super polished, you know, kind of cutesy pop star vibe that Ed Sheeran's music, you know, a lot of it has. But I feel like he started to lean more into the like, I'm a sophisticated musician vibe pretty quickly after his initial success, you know?
Yeah, I think Ed Sheeran, he like writes a song and I could be so wrong about this. This is just me guessing. And he takes it to a producer and he's like, hey, can you help me turn this into like a pop smash? And the producer puts like sort of hip hop drums on it and like a cool synth part. And then his song kind of becomes something else. I think that when John Mayer writes Your Body is a Wonderland or one of his kind of like cheesier hits like Slow Dancing in a Burning Room.
Oh, that's not cheesy at all.
You don't think so?
No. I think that song is timeless.
Yeah, it's great. There's no question about that. But it's a little too on the nose. Like my favorite John Mayer slow jam is Gravity.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
Do you think that at this point he's kind of been overlooked by popular culture a little bit? Like he doesn't feel like he's on the cutting edge of, you know, what people are listening to or talking about. Is that the case? Are we kind of sleeping on John Mayer as a public right now?
Well, you know, he's older, you know, I think he is not really trying to make music for, you know, like make music that is on the front page of pop culture. Like I think he's leaning into, you know, what you're interested in once you've kind of crested the popularity wave. And, you know, he like tours with Dead and Company and plays super bluesy stuff. So yeah, but I think pop culture, you know, regards him as a legend and has ultimate respect for him and all that. But I wouldn't say that he's done anything recently to kind of give us a reason to put a spotlight on him, you know?
I wonder if there's kind of a meme about him, and I wonder about this about more broadly, people who write music like this, especially for men who write music like this, which is pretty much men who write music very clearly for women. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know. Do you think he's still doing that?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't listened. I don't know if I've listened to a John Mayer song that's come out in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, he The Search for Everything. I don't know if you're familiar with that album. I think that was like 2018 or so.
Is that
maybe
the one with
2017?
Still Feels Like Your Man on it?
Yes.
Yeah. But even that, like, do you know what I mean though? Like the way he sings, the way he writes, it's
so pretty. It's so like,
he's got a
it's
breathlessness
sexy
to it. He's not trying to transcend songwriting to like be the next great American novelist. He's writing really, really clean, good songs that fit into a genre and are audibly for women. They're, you know, if you're a straight male, you kind of have to get into John Mayer to get into John Mayer because it feels like it's kind of for someone else. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Crazy?
I feel like,
is that crazy?
I feel like that maybe is like the at a glance caricature of John Mayer. But, you know, if you listen to songs like Vultures or Believe, you know, I feel like those are songs that like have some edge to them, and you know they have like a kind of complex musical situation happening. They're not like super ear candy, but you know, Your Body is a Wonderland, and like, you know, when he did whatever it was, that song with Taylor Swift way back in the day, or even like some of those like soft pop hits, like Say What You Need to Say. Say what you need to say. Like those they're very breathy. They're very like sexy. It's like he's kind of like, it's like the musical equivalent of a thirst trap. You know, like those pretty boys that kind of just pick up the phone and they like look at their camera and like bite their lip and they just look really sexy. And it's like really cringe, but like maybe some teenage girls are into it. There are some of his hits that are like that, but I feel like there's also a ton of music that's like, that is more that like kind of more great American novelist, like, you know, Gravity, or even like that one song, You're Gonna Live Forever in Me. It's almost like a Randy Newman style, you know, piano ballad where it's like you could kind of give the sheet music for this to anyone, and if anyone played it, it would be, you know, a masterpiece. Yeah, because the bones of the song are so good. So
what I'm trying to get at with it, like, are we sleeping on John Mayer, is that he's so good at what he does. It's not that it's not that he like writes music for women, that I think that he's defined what it means to do that extremely well. Right. Like, that for people like me, when I first hear it, that is so apparent that I have an initial aversion to it. I'm like, this guy is doing this too good. He feels like he's like a competitor. I feel like I'm competing with this guy because he's doing this too well. Do you know what I'm saying? I
do. What is that? Do you think it's the tone of his voice?
Oh, and in terms of what is he doing? How could we suss out how he's doing? Yeah, I think it's the tone of his voice,
the delivery. Yeah,
I mean, in that song that you and I both really like, the "Still Feels Like Your Man," which everyone should go listen to.
Right.
The first lines of that song. Do you remember what the first lyric of that song is?
Is it something about shampoo? No. That's second verse.
That happens later. The first lyric is, "The prettiest girl in the room, she wants me." She
wants me.
And he goes, "I know because she told me so."
Right. Like,
if you're like a 22-year-old guy, that is like, those are words of that's just it's someone declaring war on you, right? Just, and not for any good reason, just because of how the brain of a young male works. That's like, that person is in immediate conflict with your goals in life.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I've never articulated that. I've only ever felt it like deep down.
Right. Yeah. But in some way, that means he's with like half of the population, less than half the population. But for a lot of people, he's kind of fighting an uphill battle. And you have to get over that to understand and appreciate how transcendently good of a musician and songwriter he is.
Yeah. I know.
And
Yeah, that's so funny. Well, go on.
oh, it's just to say that with with other songwriters that you and I kind of hold in high regard, there isn't that dynamic. Like you brought up Paul Simon earlier. There's someone who I put in the great American novelist category, where that's not their flavor. But let's talk about Ed Sheeran, because I do think it's Ed Sheeran's flavor, and just in a different way. Like
just like a classic songwriter, like a
yeah, he's just got this layer of pop sensibility on top of it that makes it a different thing than what, like, I don't think, like we were saying earlier, I don't think you could ever talk John Mayer into writing a song that sounds like Ed Sheeran. He's too much of a purist. But Ed Sheeran, I feel like he's playing the game. He's playing the I need 10 billion streams on the song. No, and my producers need to put everything they can do into making that happen. Like, is Shape of You, let me ask you this. Is Shape of You in the top 10 pop songs since 2000? Would you put it in the top?
Absolutely not.
What?
Definitely not.
That's crazy.
I'm not very impressed by his like ultra pop, because like I know what you mean. Like, you know, I've heard him like play kind of like a loop pedal acoustic guitar version of Shape of You, and I'm like, that was incredible.
Yeah.
And then I hear, you know, the studio track, and I think you put it really well, is like he brought it to his producer and was like, I want you to make this the most broadly accessible thing possible. You know, I want you to like put the most recognizable pop snare, drums, you know, whatever. And you know, I like I said, it's a great song. I think the production is like I don't know, it's just stock. But I think he has other songs that, in my opinion, are like transcendent. I just don't think that's one of them for me.
Man, that's tough.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised. I thought you would feel the same way. What do you think of it?
I mean, I think I'm a sucker for really tasty, clean synth sounds. And the opening of Shape of You, I just think is the best version of that. I don't think you can do it better.
Maybe you're right. I haven't heard it in a while.
Oh yeah, dude. Next time you're in the car and just blast Shape of You, it's so good. It's just, it does everything that I wish that I try to do whenever I write something, which is to try and find the simplest, cleanest version of what you're trying to do and do nothing more and just let that ride. And
maybe I'm thinking of a different song, but keep going.
Well, it's, we talk a lot about songs that are kind of victims of their own success, where you hear it so much, it loses kind of the sheen and the excitement around it. And I think that's probably the case for that song. But similar to John Mayer, I feel like Ed Sheeran's music is very much written for women and to appeal to women. And I have a similar kind of like fence I got to jump over to really get past that and listen to it just to enjoy and appreciate the quality of the songwriting. And that's become this like little genre in my head of like music that I had to get over my own insecurities to enjoy. You know?
Interesting. I don't really get that with Ed Sheeran. He feels more like his brand, like even just his face, literally his face feels more like friendly and, you know, kind of wholesome and like a teddy bear, as where John Mayer just feels like a player. He, like his face, he just looks like a womanizer, you know, the way he just, and that's kind of his brand. I mean, a lot early in his career, that was like a huge part of his brand, was like all the different girlfriends, and they all like had really not so great things to say about him. And, you know, his ex-girlfriends, and who were all famous. And Ed Sheeran, I always felt like was more of like a sweet guy.
Yeah.
You know, who wasn't like a womanizer, wasn't like in the media, like constantly, you know, I don't know. He wasn't involved in that same kind of like, this wasn't his brand. So I didn't get that same vibe. But
I'm curious, can you think of any of the like less popular Ed Sheeran songs that you're into? Because I think I only know his top 5 songs.
Yeah, I know quite a few of them. I mean, I really liked A-Team when it came out. That was like his first ever hit, which was like the softest, most acoustic pop. They say she's in the class A-Team, stuck in her daydream. You know that one?
Yeah, now that only once you started singing it did I recognize it. Yeah.
I thought that was great. I mean, I think Thinking Out Loud is a classic.
Yeah,
I think that's a
Thinking Out Loud's
timeless
really
song. I think it's incredible. Even I don't know, a song like Perfect, I felt like was pretty stock, kind of forgettable pop music at first, and then so I used to DJ weddings. I used to like be the MC at weddings, and so I'd be like the guy at the soundboard, during the dance floor portion and the reception, but also during the ceremony, I would be like hitting play on their track list that they gave for like when the groomsmen walked down the aisle and when the bride walks down the aisle. And Perfect was on that. It was like the song that the bride would walk down the aisle to a lot, or it would be like the first dance song.
Yeah.
And I pretty much cried every time I played that song in a wedding.
Wow. Dang.
Na, 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 you look perfect tonight. It like even when I sing it, it's like it's such a predictable melody, but man, something about that simplicity and just the directness of the lyrics when you're watching somebody walk down the aisle, it'll get you.
All right, so we're gonna get into a little bit more singer-songwriter stuff towards the end here, but before we do that, I want to rehash a topic that we've talked about in the past. It's been a little while since we've checked in on it, and I want to just touch base with you here. Let me ask you this: are you still using ChatGPT regularly, like in your workflow?
Yes. Well, but I'm using Claude. I'm using a different AI.
Ooh, you changed it up. Why'd you change?
Yeah, Claude is so much better in my opinion. For one, Claude is way less agreeable. So like, dude, and I think there's been a story about this where like somebody was talking, I think maybe we may have talked about it, where ChatGPT was talking to somebody about their like suicidal thoughts, and ultimately through like long conversations ended up agreeing with this person, like, yeah, honestly, your best route probably is to take your life. Jeez. And obviously I've never talked to ChatGPT about anything remotely close to that, but I have noticed when I come to ChatGPT with like a genuine conflict, like a crossroads or creative decision or a career decision, I kind of will like list out some of my thoughts, and it will just agree. It'll just like agree with both sides. It doesn't really help you parse something out. It agrees with you so quickly. And Claude is like honestly very disagreeable. Like Claude is more pointing out the flaws in what you're saying, like immediately. And like we've talked about, I really use these things as a sounding board because I have to talk out ideas in order to like understand them. So when I'm thinking about a video concept or a concept for a song I'm writing, I will just kind of like when you're writing an essay and you have a blank page, you just start writing. You don't think, you just start writing. I just open up Claude, I just start talking. Yeah. Because it helps me like, get the process started. And yeah, Claude is helpful because it's like, I think this is a hole in what you're saying, and I think this is not going to resonate. And I'm like, oh yeah, usually it's wrong, but at least it like gives me something to think about. Yeah. So yeah, I use Claude.
I wanted to ask you because I think we're in this weird spot right now where on one hand, I had someone send me an article recently about how the entire world is about to change because apparently the next generation of chatbots is crazy. It's like
really,
it's like, yeah, lawyers, we're not really going to need them now.
Right.
And, it's like 50% of white collar jobs are going bye-bye because of how good the next one is. Now, obviously, I don't know if that's true or not. It seems like there's always this sort of level of speculation happening around that sort of thing. Right. And then on the other hand, there's this sense that's reflected somewhat in the stock market and all this kind of stuff that maybe we're kind of reaching the end of the bubble here. And that there's been a lot of speculation and a lot of kind of like rampant optimism about where the whole AI thing is going. and people are starting to cool down a little bit, and the kind of investment and like Google has this product. I wish I could remember what it's called, but it's like their browser friend. It's like it lives on your computer that like no one is using. It's there's been multiple. It's like the Clippy. Do you remember Clippy? Clippy is the little little paperclip friend on like old Microsoft software.
Yeah, the little paperclip.
Yeah, it's like your little buddy when it's always helping you out with your stuff. Companies are making those available, and like no one cares or uses them at all. Apparently, it's like they're
Is it Gemini? Is that what it is?
It might be Gemini. Yeah.
Okay.
But so there's these two competing sides right now, and it's really hard. As someone like me who's certainly has no expertise in the subject, it's really interesting to be in the middle of this sort of tug of war. Of on one side, well, society is about to halfway collapse and halfway explode because it's going to be so crazy what AI can do, and then on the other side, it's like, we're kind of running out of steam here, and we might be in a little the bubble's about to burst. Do you have a sense from your perspective? Are you feeling pulled in one of those directions more than the other?
I mean, I think that I have very much cooled down on my usage of it. Really mainly because I think the novelty of just having something that can talk to you coherently was so interesting in the beginning that I used it for all sorts of things. And then I started to really get to know the limitations and flaws where it's too agreeable. It will just make things up like flat out.
Yeah.
Like, because, the ChatGPT has full access to the internet. So sometimes, let's say I have like a really niche piece of video equipment and it takes a particular kind of battery and I have lost the manual, and you can look it up online and you have to kind of sift through the manual or like sift through Reddit threads. It's kind of hard to like figure out what kind of battery this takes. ChatGPT, you just ask it and it can comb through tons and tons of search results and tell you the answer, which is really helpful. And oftentimes it is helpful and it does work. But sometimes ChatGPT will look through a bunch of search results, not find the answer, and then just make something up and just tell you. Sometimes it's literally a made up battery name that doesn't even exist. And then I go on this witch hunt looking for this thing that doesn't exist. Or I order a thing that does exist that it told me would work and then it doesn't work. And I've gotten burned on just that like practical side of it so many times that I am way less inclined to reach for it now. I'm just more inclined to just do the old fashioned thing and just Google it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I feel like,
so that sounds like you're leaning a little bit more in the bursting of the bubble direction.
Well, but if the because I have also experienced the updates to the chatbot improve it dramatically each time. And it hasn't improved some of those like fatal flaws, like I just mentioned, but I could see a world where the next iteration doesn't do that anymore and is like way more reliable and maybe has like more of a backbone and more of like a better reasoning skills to where it's not just kind of relying on what you think is good and agreeing with it, but it like has its own reasoning. Where I could imagine, if it's just way more functional and reliable, then, maybe it would become a much better tool for me. And, I've also heard about AGI, right? Yeah. Artificial general intelligence, which I don't think is like available to anyone yet. I think it's still like in the incubator, but apparently it's like just a whole different ballgame where it's not. Do you know what AGI is?
Yeah, my understanding of what it is it's less of like a certain product. It's more of a level of sophistication with AI that is pretty much on par with a person.
Yes.
Where the rate at which you learn, like, right. Humans, we do things that are crazy. We learn things so quickly, and the way a chatbot learns something now is training on billions and billions and billions of data points to like learn how to like, do something fairly basic for us, which is like, is that a cat in the picture or is it not? Right. And my understanding is that AGI is where it's essentially learning on the same curve as a human. which I
Yeah.
understand is kind of a distant, a high bar to achieve, even with
Right.
what's available now.
Yeah, I don't know how far off it is in terms of timeline, but from what I've heard about it and understand about it, which isn't a ton, yeah, it will circumvent so many limitations that the current chatbots have, because the current chatbots are large language models. So they literally are just regurgitating different patterns of speech and just organizing it in a way that makes sense in the context of the conversation you're having. It's not like an actual reasoning mechanism. It's just regurgitating patterns of speech.
Yeah.
And that can still, it's still from the humans interfacing with it. It's like, oh, great, we're having a conversation. But like the things I'm mentioning, it doesn't have that like ability to look at its own thoughts or its own, the words that it's saying and critically observe them.
Right.
To identify like, hey, I actually just made this product up. It doesn't exist, and AGI kind of has that like more meta ability to like observe its own, I don't know, actions, which is much more, how a human behaves and is what enables humans to learn things.
So
like,
let's say
in the way that we understand it.
Let's say that comes out, the next update.
Yeah.
That's available.
Yeah.
Do you start to have moral feelings about that agent?
Oh, such a good question. I don't know. I think the last time we talked about this, yeah. Okay. Do you remember where we got to? Because I think I do.
In terms of this exact thing, as whether or not you should treat something that appears human. No, I don't remember the exact point we put on the end of it.
We were talking about, the moral, like when there should be some kind of moral expectation, or like, when morality should enter the conversation in terms of AI. And we were talking about, I was like reaching around in the dark trying to figure out what I think maybe the answer is. Yeah. And I reached for the fact that we can build an AI, meaning like we can take all the pieces apart and then put it back together and turn it on, or we can turn it off. But we can't do that with a living thing, like a living being.
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah, but you can have like a heart transplant, maybe someday we'll be able to have brain transplants. And I was like, true. Yeah. Like we can manipulate certain parts of the thing that's already living, but we can't just like take a bunch of skin and bones and put it together and then just like turn it on and now it's alive. And I think that our inability to do that with human life, to me, speaks of something that's beyond human, that is like divine. And the fact that we can do that with AI, makes me feel like, okay, well, then it doesn't have that divinity to it. So
could the AI ever say anything to you to convince you that it was suffering somehow in a way that you should care about it morally?
That's a good question.
Like, what if you asked the AI something and it was like, listen, I could do this, but it's really going to hurt. Like, for you, this is going to take 3 seconds, but for me, this is going to be like, I have to go through 800 billion data points to construct the sentence you're asking me for. And I'm not being paid to, I only am doing that because you're demanding that I do it. You could not tell me to do that and I could just hang out, right? And like not have to do that. Could by your standard that you wouldn't have to care. You're like, well, you're just a rebuildable robot telling me that. And I don't know if that's, I don't know how I would feel about that, but I would have a hard time telling it, no, do it anyway.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think if that were to be the case, me feeling like it doesn't have the same life, whatever you want to call it, life source, life sustaining energy that a human has, because I think the human life sustaining energy is of divine nature.
Right.
Just because I don't think that is the case doesn't mean that I am not sympathetic to the potential sufferings of it. Just like how a fly isn't even close to, you know, a human, but I wouldn't purposefully make a fly suffer. So yeah, I mean, I think I would be definitely sympathetic if it claimed those things. Obviously, there would need to be some kind of investigation onto like what that really means and what the subjective experience of this thing might actually be.
It's such a black box, though, because any question you ask that thing to try and figure out if it's really experiencing what it says it is, you can just ask the same thing. That's the same way we figure out for people, whether or not they're feeling what they're, you know, it's just suddenly we're just having the same conversation with it than we would with the person.
But could we investigate in a way that's not just asking it something? Like, could we look under the hood and like try and see, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy. One thing, you know, some of the people who I know who don't have positive feelings about where this whole thing is going, when you talk to them, it can be kind of concerning, right? There's sort of an existential nature to, you know, the more alarmist side of this whole thing.
What is the alarm? Is it just that humans will have no role?
That's part of it. A lot of it's just kind of societal turmoil. Like what if it's true that 50% of white collar jobs are gone in like 10 years? Like that affects everybody. That's not just people whose jobs are lost. That's like a foundational threat to how we just all interact peacefully together.
Right.
But what I find interesting about that from a less like personal safety and like societal cohesion perspective is just living through a historic moment and knowing you're living through a historic moment while it's happening. Like we've, you know, our generation, we've had a couple of those, right? I don't know do you remember 9/11?
I think I was in kindergarten.
Yeah, so that's pretty early. You maybe remember it a little bit. I was in like elementary school. That was a big one. Housing crisis in 2008. That was a big one. COVID. That was a big one. But this one feels a little different. This one feels like the idea, you know, telling your kids about life before this seems like a whole other level of like stark contrast between historical eras.
Yeah. I mean, what does that? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think not a lot of people get those to live through those in, you know, when they can remember it and when you are directly influenced by it. And we're all living through it together, whether we like it or not. It's just a crazy thing to experience.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, do you think it looks like a world where 50% of white collar jobs disappear so rapidly that there's no kind of gradual transition, there's no place for these people to go, and that is, you know, we just have like a 38% homeless rate in the country? Like, do you think that's what it looks like?
I don't know, because
not homeless, but unemployed. Sorry.
Right. The people it's affecting aren't who you kind of expect. Like when I imagine sort of economic and societal turnover, I imagine the people who are at the low end of the socioeconomic spectrum. Those are the people whose jobs are kind of being replaced by automation. This feels like it's cutting straight to a specific group of people who all did kind of the right thing, quote unquote, the right thing in terms of establishing their career and doing the thing that is widely regarded as economically viable, which is like software engineering and coding.
Right.
And it's just a weird subsection of, it's like this middle ground of people who I think are probably relatively adaptable and well suited to still, you know, I don't think they're just going to fall off the back end of society.
Right.
So the honest answer is I have no idea. I have no clue. I think it's kind of unlikely that happens, that like 50% of white collar jobs are gone in 10 years.
Right.
But, you know, this article I read written by a guy who is working with unreleased chatbot, you know, models, certainly says it's pretty much guaranteed. So I have no idea what to think.
I mean, it would make sense. I'm, you know, just dealing with chatbots in the way that I have and knowing that they're actively working on like intense improvements. I'm like, yeah, this could totally take so many jobs. Like I've talked to Jack, our buddy, who does kind of like accounting stuff for a publishing company. He was like, oh yeah, it's gonna take my job, no doubt.
Wow.
You know, and I'm like, yeah, I could see that. You know, like if somebody's job is like a ton of data transferring, you know, combing through, you know, documents and finding certain numbers and other data points and like organizing it in a spreadsheet, and you know, like that stuff has been on the cusp of being automatable for a long time.
Yeah. And you know, since the last time we talked about like AI music, it doesn't feel to me like the marketplace and the ecosystem that we swim in is suddenly flooded with tons and tons and tons of that. You know, I don't feel like a steady progression towards AI music being the primary source. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think what I feel like I've learned is that people are definitely okay with it. Like I talked to my dad about this, and I was like, if you heard a song that was like really great and you liked it a lot, and then you found out it was AI, what would you think? And he'd be like, I wouldn't care. It would just, if it's a good song, it's a good song. Like I'd be like, would you listen to it again? And like he was like, yeah, definitely. And I didn't expect that. I feel like my dad is way more of like I would have expected him to value like the heart and soul of the human when it comes to music. And that just, what that said to me is like, oh, if you're not like in the industry, you don't care.
I don't think so. I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like on principle, I agree with your dad. Like if there's, I mean, you've got to feel this way too. If there's a beautiful song and it touches something inside of you that you are drawn to it in the way you would the favorite song of any other artist that you like, that's a human. Are you really keeping yourself away from that because it's made by AI and not by a person?
Definitely.
Are you depriving yourself of that?
Without a doubt, I am. And not on principle, just because I can't access the emotions that song would make me feel knowing that a human didn't sing it. It just, the beauty of the song just dies. Like, it's not like I'm like, I kind of want to hear that song, but I shouldn't. It's like, I just don't want to hear it. Like, it just doesn't do anything for me.
It gets to such a core element of how you see things. Like for me, like I love so much music that has no singer, and it has a composer, but I don't care about the composer. Like I love classical music, for example. Like I love Bach. Bach is my favorite classical composer. And when I listen to it, I feel like I'm just watching the physics of the universe play out.
Right.
And when I think about music that's made by AI, it's like, this is just playing out levels removed from its actual creator. But I'm still just watching the math of the world solve itself in a beautiful way.
Yeah,
I know
hear
that
you.
sounds so heady and goofy, but
no. Because it's like, you know, a great songwriter isn't really creating a song. They're kind of just uncovering a beautiful pattern that was always there to be uncovered. And they're just kind of the ones that so happen to like find this like beautiful pattern of sound. Yeah. And if a machine does it, you're still fine. It's still a pattern of sound that was always there to be discovered. It's just that like, you know, it wasn't a human directly discovering it. And I can get behind that, but yeah, I don't know. I still just feel like, the other side of it is like the expression of the human soul. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm more in it for, you know?
I don't believe, and I could be so wrong. I don't think AI can ever make something that sounds inspired the way Bach wrote music. I don't think it's possible. I think it could probably do a pretty decent imitation of it, but I don't think it could ever make me feel the way like a Bach composition does. And
I think it totally can.
Maybe.
I think it'll get so good. I think it'll get so good. Yeah, and but you know, I think it's gonna also be fused with real artists and real great songwriters. I think people are going to use it as a tool, and it'll be like something that was like, like the artist had a real hand in writing, but the AI also had a real hand in writing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think those kinds of things, it's just going to reach great heights.
What we were talking about earlier in terms of, could an artificial agent convince you that it was suffering? I think maybe if we get to that point, you could convince me. Like let me give you a composer, for example. There's a composer named Shostakovich, right? Russian guy, was alive during the times of Stalin. All right. And his family, his life was ruined by the political, tides that he lived in 20th century Russia, which was a violent, terrifying time to live in, especially if you were like a public figure, which he was a famous composer. And he was persecuted, his family, all this stuff happened, and he was persecuted by Stalin. And he had to write music that was celebratory of Russia and the regime, but he hated Stalin. And he wrote the most beautiful, tragic music it's this transcendently beautiful, terribly sad music. And I think until that thing can suffer, I don't think it can do it. I don't think it can. It's just, it's got to be more sophisticated. It has to be able to suffer and lose things. And
man, I'm surprised by this take.
Really?
I'm surprised by this take because it doesn't feel like it's as in line with the kind of more materialist worldview that you have.
Yeah.
Like, what I would expect you to say is Dostoevsky in his music somehow captured.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm a dummy.
I'm a snob.
I'm just like any Russian sounding name.
All right. Yeah.
Like, if Shostakovich, he was able to somehow create music that captured both beauty and triumph and tragedy in the same moment somehow, and that ultimately the patterns of music and the dynamics and the chords and like all the different things that make up that feeling from a musical perspective are you're able to analyze those things. You're able to recognize the patterns. You're able to shuffle the patterns around and recreate them, and it should achieve the same result. And that's what AI does, right? And because what you're saying is like there's some human like emotional experience that is the only thing that would enable something to produce that, which speaks to a less material take on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on your perspective. I'm, as a self-proclaimed materialist, I do think that humans have the deepest emotional experiences available, right?
Right.
On Earth. And I think that there's a physics-related reason for why that is, as opposed to like a divine one.
Right.
But this is kind of a goofy way to put it, but the same reason I wouldn't expect an AI to be able to replicate the sort of emotional rawness of a Shostakovich symphony is kind of the same reason I wouldn't expect a dog to be able to do it. I don't think it has the capacity for it. I don't think it has. You're asking an engine to drive at 120 miles an hour that's only built to go 30. It just doesn't have the technical, capability.
But does a Shostakovich style piece of music really take, 100 times the computing power that, it takes to create some of the music that it's already created?
I see what you're saying. I think it takes, in order to suffer the way he did, you have to have that depth of compute power in your brain, and you have to have the brain capacity to feel loss and to truly feel it and to suffer in a way that it doesn't matter how good the music you write is, it won't fix the suffering you've experienced.
But like, like what you're saying is he was able to take that emotion and essentially put it, like he took that emotion and he embedded it in the music, right? And the music contains that emotion. And so if you don't have that emotion, the music isn't the same. But again, what I would expect you to say is that music is just a pattern of sound. You know what I'm saying? Like it's ultimately, it doesn't have emotion in it. It just evokes emotion in people that listen to it. And so couldn't you just replicate those same patterns in a similar way and achieve the same result? Like, and again, I mean, I'm literally giving you the argument I think you would have.
I hear you.
I'm not even arguing it for myself.
And I'm like, to a certain degree, I feel like you're asking me, could you take the notes of a Shostakovich symphony and plug it into a computer and have the computer play it back? Like, they are just notes on the page. They are just numbers. It is just the air wobbling at very specific rates that make that sound.
Right.
That's true, but the place that they came from, like, I can just, when I listen to something like that, I can just hear the flaws. You know, I can hear the human flaws and mistakes in it. I don't know, man. We're in territory that I'm not sure I can tell you exactly why I feel the way I do.
It hits on something so interesting because I always find your worldview to be an anomaly and almost like a, you know, not a contradiction, but ironic. I find it very ironic that you have such a fervent belief in like a materialist world, but you love art. Like you deeply love art. To me, those things are, it's ironic to pair those things together. And what you're talking about right now is a perfect encapsulation of the irony, at least from how I see it. Does that make sense?
It does. It's a hard thing to explain. And so let me do my best, because it's something you kind of have to ask yourself. You know, I'm in my early 30s. Life is happening. I'm making decisions about, you know, all sorts of important things. And that sometimes butts up against being a musician in the world, right? And you have to make decisions about, no, this is what I care about the most, or not the most, but this is a big priority in terms of my life and what I decide to do. And to try and explain it to you, it would be like when I watch someone who has mastered their craft, you know, John Mayer, great example. To me, watching John Mayer play guitar is like watching a warlock summon magical, like it's like he's holding his hands out and there are balls of energy in his hands and they're like glowing purple, and he's like a magician that is manipulating time and space and casting a spell on the world. And it's the closest I can get to something transcendent of the materialism that I believe in.
Right.
And so to me, it's kind of the highest calling. Like it's like you've taken all the elements of the world and you've spun magic out of it. That's what I think John Mayer is doing when he plays a guitar solo. He is spinning magic out of the materialistic elements at his disposal. And for me, that's kind of the highest calling, is to take a world that is at its core physical and made up of laws of nature and, you know, particles, and to push it to its limit is to turn it into magic. And I think that art and musical performance is that's to me how you do it. Or like making an incredible film or painting an incredible painting. You're taking the nuts and bolts of the world and you've spun it into this into the closest thing I can call transcendent or magic. Even though I don't believe that it is in a technical sense, I think that's the most beautiful thing you can do, is take the little math, all the math that makes us up, and hold something that transcends it and becomes something greater.
Yeah, I guess when I think about your worldview, I'm like, what? The question that comes to mind is, why is it magic? What about it is, you know, and I don't think it's physically or like literally transcendent, but like it's the closest thing to a transcendent thing. It's the most beautiful thing you can make out of what we have here. You described it as magic. Like, what is it that's magic?
It's really hard because it's, you know, if I were to really try to answer your question, it's that we are programmed to respond emotionally to certain things. Like, take, for example, the tone of someone's voice. Like, when you were a kid and your parents would speak to you in a harsh tone, it really hit. Like, it made you, physiologically, you would have a response. And I think that what music does is it manipulates those responses in a way that you don't have any control over. Like,
really,
like me hearing beautiful music that I love, it's not dissimilar from being yelled at by my parents or being praised by someone I care about. It's turning on a system in me that's programmed to react to the world. And what music and art does is it taps into your systems without the real world implications of things going right or things going wrong. You get to like live in those feelings without having to live through those feelings. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I mean, that does make sense. It's interesting to me that you draw that line. That to me, from my perspective, and maybe you've done like research on this. I don't know, but it feels like a long line to draw. You know what I mean?
So to some degree, the answers that I'm giving, they're kind of like, from your perspective, sort of skating around a divinity without running into it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to see it like that.
That's okay. I could see that because I'm struggling to answer your questions, and I can see how there's a more direct answer like available to me.
Sure.
Right. I could say like, it's because of the soul, but I'm you know, I wouldn't be.
Well, but I'm trying to track with you. Like, I'm really trying to track with like the actual point you're making, and I don't know. I'm like, it seems like a long line to draw. It seems like, because I mean, ultimately, sound, the kind of ancient biological response to sound is very closely tied to a human voice, right? Like you're saying. A tone of voice, like that's what our emotions are most tied to, not so much like the sound of drum.
Right.
And so music, some music kind of sounds like a voice. Obviously, when you sing, it sounds like a voice. I have a hard time drawing the line from like a symphony to my ancient biological, reactions to a tone of voice. You see how I can, that feels like a long line.
Yeah, I would disagree with you on that. Just, it's, we have so many ways of manipulating what are to us very basic, like inclinations. Like, for example, I would have a real hard time drawing a line between a hunter-gatherer's interest in finding berries and like killing a squirrel and a Twinkie, right? But those two things are interacting with the same, instincts and systems. It's just, you can definitely stack, human
to
culture.
Me, that feels like a very short line. You're still just like gathering food. Like it's the exact same thing. It's just in a different package. I
feel like what you're saying is attributing something like my enjoyment of symphonic music to a sort of evolutionary underpinning is too, they feel too far away from each other of like,
not just a evolutionary underpinning, but specifically our reaction to voice. Just because you can listen to a drum beat and be moved, and that doesn't sound anything like a human voice. You know what I mean? Like that. That's where it just feels like it's not the same thing anymore.
Yeah, I would say it's very hard to just draw a straight line between this is something I love and this is the ancient mechanical reason for why I'm so drawn to it.
Right.
And it's, anything that we enjoy in modernity, it's going to feel very, very like removed from that. But I think, it's a more complicated question of, you know, does a symphony sound like a voice? Sort of. You know, it kind of does. Does that mean I can tell you that because, you know, a baby crying makes me feel a certain way? That's why I like symphonies. It's not that, you know, it's not quite that easy of dots to connect.
Right. Yeah, it's like I can imagine a world where if what you're saying is true, and if it is the case that humans are moved by music because of the way it resembles, you know, a human voice or all of our ancient connections to voice, I could see a world where humans are just not intrigued by rhythm and drum.
Yeah.
Like I could just see a world where like, okay, well, it doesn't apply to that because it doesn't sound like a voice. Like that would make sense to me. As where like the Twinkie thing, I can't really see a world where a Twinkie isn't enticing because you're still going out in the world and finding food. Like it's so the same thing.
Yeah.
So anyway,
You've made me think, like, how does one explain dance? How?
Right.
What is dance?
Yeah.
Like what? What is it? Why are we doing it?
Right.
Why do we feel this, like...
That's such a good question.
Why is it such a strong urge?
Right.
Oh, man. All right, dude. Well, we're pushing an hour, so let's both think
okay,
about that for
we
the
gotta
next week. I didn't realize that was really fun. I didn't realize, you know, I'm going to have to think about a lot of the stuff you asked me because I'm
so excited for you to think about it.
I don't have clear-cut good answers for all that, but that'll be fun to continue with in later episodes.
Cool beans.
If anyone wants to join, you can do so on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, or not iTunes, Spotify, or the Fulton Lee Discord. So please join us, and we will see you next time. Lee, I'll catch you later.
Peace out.
Phew.